Continuamos aquí en nuestro PropTech Latam Online 2021 y ahora con un invitado muy especial, por primera vez en un evento en América Latina. Se trata de Aaron Block, es co-founder y managing partner de MetaProp. Para aquellos que no conozcan MetaProp, no creo que sean muchos aquí, pero vale siempre la pena ampliar los conocimientos. Es una firma de capital de riesgo con sede en New York, centrada en la temática PropTech. Desde el año 2015 que vienen trabajando y llevan invertidas más de 120 startups de PropTech. Realmente un número muy importante que los hace uno de los fondos más importantes del mundo al hablar de PropTech, de inversión en PropTech. Ahora les voy a contar un poco más quién es Aaron. Aaron se desempeñó, antes de fundar MetaProp, como presidente de Beirut, con sede en Chicago, una empresa especialista en comercio electrónico entre Estados Unidos y Rusia. Ha recibido a lo largo de su carrera numerosos honores y premios, como en el sector inmobiliario, en el sector creativo, como profesional de corretaje más prometedor, realmente una persona súper profesional en todo lo que ha emprendido en su vida. Aaron también es reconocido en el mundo como un líder en innovación inmobiliaria, tiene una parte académica, es profesor invitado en la Universidad de Columbia, también tiene una parte como escritor, es coautor del libro PropTech 101, un bestseller de Amazon. Fue nombrado Ejecutivo del Año en el año 2019 por la revista Commercial Property Executive y también ha aparecido en muchos libros y revistas, medios internacionales como Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Business Insider o TechCrunch, por mencionar solo algunos. De modo que ahora vamos a tener realmente una oportunidad única de hablar con una de las personas más influyentes del real estate de Estados Unidos. Welcome, Aaron Block.
Thank you, Andrea. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, and thanks for accepting this invitation because this is your first time that you participate in an event in Latin America, right?
Primera vez.
Primera vez y con un poco de español. Muy bien.
Un poco.
Right. Well. In fact, we are going to make this interview in English, more comfortable for you. Okay. But we put the subtitles in Spanish for all the audience because it's very important for us, all your knowledge, your experience, to learn more what is the PropTech in the world and in the US specifically. But for start, I would like to know, and the audience want to know more about what MetaProp is.
So, thank you. Y la próxima vez en español, ¿ok?
Perfecto.
So thank you, Andrea. MetaProp, as you mentioned, we are venture capitalists, and we are the #1 early stage venture capital investor in the category that we call PropTech. So at the intersection of real estate and technology, the emerging technology companies that are solving real estate problems or affecting the built environment, we are investing in those companies. Over the past 10 years, we've invested in 130 PropTech startups as a team, and we own and operate 15 billion square feet around the world of property through our investor group, which is really interesting because the startups that receive our venture capital have a chance to pilot or test or proof of concept or scale up their product or get co-investments from this incredible group of international names like CBRE or JLL or Cushman and Wakefield or Prudential's PGIM or many, many more. So that's a very interesting aspect of our business, Andrea. We also, as you mentioned, have written a book about the space to allow people who are not as familiar with the space to be more familiar. It's called PropTech 101. We run a startup accelerator program with Columbia University, and that's been very successful because we receive startup applications from around the world, including many from Latin America, which is interesting. And overall, we do maybe one deal, almost 2 deals per month on average. So we see 200 new opportunities in the PropTech space every single month. And we've had to learn over the years to be very good at saying no to some very good technologies in order to deploy our capital into the highest potential winners. Over the years, we've had many winners where funds are top performing funds, and we are currently investing out of our third venture capital fund as we speak today. Our team is 13 people. We are primarily located in New York, but we are a virtual team. So we have a partner who lives full-time in Seattle. We have people in South Florida, and we have one employee who just moved from the New York area to Austin, Texas. So it's very nice 21st century distributed team in the venture capital world today.
Right. And I imagine that it could be good for the business, no? The people around the world.
It's very nice. We have venture advisors in Dallas, in Arizona, in San Francisco. It's wonderful because we also have the coverage of our limited partners, many of whom are multinational organizations or based internationally in Asia, in LATAM, or in Brazil. We have one now too.
Right. But I would like to know more about you and your beginnings with MetaProp. How was that moment when the idea came to your life or to your head? The idea to create a fund like this.
So MetaProp is built by people who have a combination of skills and interests that are very specifically set up to be successful in this prop tech environment. I, for example, grew up around the real estate industry as a young professional out of university. I was with Cushman and Wakefield, the global real estate services firm, for the first 10 years of my career. As you mentioned, when I left, I did tech investing and startup building, so totally separate from the property business, the technology and venture capital and angel investing business with e-commerce. And when I sold that business off, I had experience in these two interesting areas, and I began to explore the overlap of the two. What could I do to find ways to bring both areas of my career together and find a new business to build and make some money and maybe change the world? It's a similar story for several of the other folks in our organization, most notably my co-founder, Zachary Aarons, who's the top investor in this space. We jokingly call him the high priest of prop tech. He's the best investor in the world. He had grown up and around a family property development business, had done tech investing, both directly and through funds, and had been an entrepreneur, tech entrepreneur himself. And so we had this in our DNA. And in New York in 2014, there was a very interesting time. The real estate industry players, New York being one of the global headquarters, if not the global headquarter for property, the real estate industry players, Andrea, were not really in tune with the innovation that was developing for their space. The startup companies that were developing in New York at the time were not really well connected to the industry players nor to the venture capitalists who were interested in evaluating this emerging idea of prop tech. And the venture capitalists knew that prop tech was a potentially interesting concept, but didn't have connectivity to the startups or to industry to be able to validate their hypothesis, to think through the opportunity set. So Zach and I said, oh my gosh, what an opportunity to become the connective tissue, to bring these stakeholder groups together in a very productive way, not just at an event, not just in an incubator, but in a year-round, very attractive way for everybody in the ecosystem, including the institutions, the government, the universities. So the first idea we had was to create a startup accelerator program that had corporate partners, enthusiasts acting as startup mentors, startup companies, of course, capital being invested in, venture capitalists coming in as guest speakers, and the government of New York to support it. And we thought that would be a good first step. So that was the idea behind MetaProp. And boy, Andrea, we were absolutely correct. It was wildly successful from the day we started. Zillow, big publicly traded real estate company, came in as a first partner. The Real Estate Board of New York, one of the most storied advocacy organizations, very powerful in New York, came in as an early partner. And this started to run very nicely. We put together our first class of investments, and we decided to form a fund to invest in those companies and all of the other companies that we were getting access to and that were coming to us for funding. And that was really that first year through the end of 2015, the beginning of MetaProp, the venture capital firm. And from there, we have built several funds and have grown our funds and have made dozens and dozens and dozens of investments in this space.
Well, it's 6 years of story, no, not more than that. It's an amazing growth, really.
It's very nice of you to say. We like to say it's a 6-year overnight success.
Right. But it's an amazing, congratulations, really. It's, that happened when you have a great idea, the exactly moment to develop that idea, and the right people to do that. Okay, so great. In this growth, what happened? You have your own event. Okay, the MetaProp event during. When do you begin with the event? In what
Maybe
year?
2016, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, 5 years ago. What was the story before and after your association with MIPIM? To clarify to the audience, MIPIM is from RIDMIDEM, is the event from RIDMIDEM, and RIDMIDEM is one or maybe the largest organizer of events in the world. So it's a big player really in the events world. So how was for you that moment when MIPIM came to you and was interested in your event? How was the story before and after that moment?
Yeah, so I've known MIPIM and the RIDMIDEM parent company brand for many, many years. I was a partner in Cushman & Wakefield in Europe. And MIPIM is the largest event for European real estate in Cannes, in France, every year. And 25,000 people come every year to the south of France and spend time on yachts and have dinners and go up the coast.
From all over the world.
From all over the world, but primarily Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So it was something that was very important, and it became a big part of my life for many years. I would go with my wife and we would bring our little dog and we would travel up and down the coast before and after. It was a wonderful experience, and we met many great people in the leadership of RIDMIDEM and also deal making, right? It was it's really one of the world's great property events. And
sorry, Aaron, that I worked for MIPIM since 12 years as representative in Latin America. Many Latin American companies and professionals went to MIPIM, and it's an amazing experience, really. It's so sad that we can't have that kind of event right now, no, for the COVID-19. But we hope that it returns sometime. It's an amazing experience.
Sure, it will come back. Really. It's a very special event.
Yeah.
So you understand better than most people. It had a very special place in my heart. And when we started the firm, we realized that just being a venture capital firm was not enough to bring the industry forward. It became partially our responsibility, which is part of the reason why we wrote a book, for example, to help the industry understand the opportunity set that technology was bringing together. And so in addition to investing capital, which is our primary business, and in addition to having the Columbia University Accelerator Program, we needed to do more to bring in the stakeholders to the ecosystem and create a sense of place in New York in particular. At the same time, MIPIM and MIPIM were looking to expand their conference and events business to the United States, and also looking to participate in the prop tech world. So we had conversations over several months, and we said, why don't we co-found a prop tech specific event together as partners in the United States, in New York, and make it the global prop tech event. And so really together, MIPIM and MetaProp came together to create what is now known as Propel by MIPIM, that now is not just New York, but certainly New York, Paris, Hong Kong events. So it's a global brand, which we're very proud of. And we got involved in the global startup competition. So it's been great for our investment business because we get to see startups, hundreds of applications from everywhere around the world, and get to meet all the industry partners that MIPIM has, and for them to have a solid launching pad for their North American business, I think was incredibly valuable, and a brand that they can use forever in the emerging prop tech space. Really worked out well, both for MIPIM, both for MetaProp, but also for the overall property and tech communities to really have this partnership be successful. So it's been really wonderful.
Well, it has many sense in this global world.
Yes,
have
yes.
This kind of meeting.
I must say that over the years also, together we have developed New York City Real Estate Tech Week and Prop Tech Week into really the established powerhouse where people come from everywhere to New York City, 5,000 plus prop tech enthusiasts and interested parties for dozen or more events throughout a 1 week period every fall, except for this last fall. It was all digital, of course, because of COVID-19, but it has really become New York as the destination for global prop tech, which is also wonderful for us, especially for a city we care so much about that has been so important in the history of prop tech's development. We love the idea of giving back and making New York for long term one of the global headquarters of prop tech.
Right. And we miss New York too. It's always lovely to go there for the events, or even always. Let's talk a bit about investment, please. Aaron, what investment amount do you operate with the fund? This is my first question. And is the investment private, institutional, corporate? What kind of investment do you have into the portfolio?
So we invest up to $3 million US in a startup in the very early stages of its development out of our fund. And those are private investments, Andrea. We invest in startup companies, almost exclusively Delaware C corporations, so US domiciled companies almost exclusively. And we'll go down to $500,000 US, maybe if we have to. It's a very early small company or an idea, maybe $250,000 US. And then after the initial investment, we have capital in our funds to continue following on as that startup grows over the years. So that is the structure of the fund. And each fund that we invest out of will do 32 to 45 individual company investments, and several of them will receive follow-on investments as they continue to grow over the years. Our latest fund, Fund 3, is $100 million in total.
Okay, great. And what trends are you seeing in talking about new investment models in technology? In US, if you know, in the rest of the world or in Latin America, what kind of new investment models are you seeing?
So we're primarily software investors as venture capitalists. That's traditional. But we also have done some hardware investing and some tech-enabled services investing or digitally native business models. And so one of the trends that I think is important for the audience to understand is that prop tech innovation is not just residential broker discovery or financing tech. That is a very interesting area of the world for Zillow or StreetEasy or Opendoor or Redfin, some big names that are known in the US, for example. It is well beyond that. It goes across the entire value chain. Technologies trying to help entrepreneurs and practitioners in the space, professionals, do their job better. So to create more efficiency, to take pen and paper technology applied on top of that to make it digital, which is very necessary for our industry, but also technologies coming from the top to entirely reimagine what we do today as practitioners. For example, 3D printing of buildings instead of constructing buildings on site with human hands, just as one example. So there is innovation across the value chain, across digital types, and across different asset types, meaning offices, multifamily, single family, retail, hospitality and hotels, etc. So that's the most important point, is there is so much new innovation coming in that everybody's traditional prop tech business is under attack. The model is being affected by these new entrepreneurs. We don't know, and nobody knows, what the future will hold, which ones will be the best. Our job as investors is to find the models, as you brought up, that are most likely to create incredible value for the ecosystem and then return the capital that comes from being a top player back to our fund and to our investors. So some examples are 3D printing and modular construction and off-site construction of property. Instead of the traditional shipping the building materials, assembling the human capital and manpower and building a structure on site, there will be a combination, of course, of pre-printed or fabricated in a factory parts shipped maybe on a train or in a truck to the job site and assembled more effectively, efficiently, cost effectively for sure, and safely. That's one interesting business model. Another interesting model that we have been heavily invested in over the last couple of years is using traditional camera technology and applying computer vision and machine learning algorithms to improve the real estate property world. For example, we have an investment in a company called VergeSense, which we've invested in alongside Jones Lang LaSalle, JLL. And this company uses cameras within office buildings in order to determine occupancy usage during the day in the office space. So large occupiers of space have a chance to understand how and when they're utilizing space, not from a sensor on every desk, not from some fancy new technology, from potentially cameras that they already have in their building, but running computer vision algorithms and machine learning through the video feed that they have to identify human occupancy or a computer that is left on a desk. And it allows for safety, security, and better utilization of space, and in turn can allow an owner or manager, for example, to make better decisions around energy usage or human capital payment and control around security, which can in turn reduce costs and impact on environment. So very interesting using computer vision. Another example of this is a company we invested in called OnSite IQ. So they will use video on an interior construction site. So as you're building out the inside of an office building or a large construction project, the video will then be processed in real time by their computer vision algorithms and use machine learning to identify hazards during the construction process. What is a hazard during the construction process? For example, a ladder used to reach the top for painting, for example, that has been left in front of an exit door, creating a problem from a health and safety perspective, or maybe an electrical wire hanging down that has not been capped and made safe. And the computer vision algorithm looks and has been trained to find these opportunities for improvement and then alerts the general contractor or the subcontractor or the owner or the lender or the insurer of the project, so that the job site can be costs improved or safer or both. Again, machine learning applied to computer vision on regular video, really incredible space where we've done several investments. Maybe one more model that I think is interesting to note for you. We invested in a company called HQO, which has grown internationally very, very quickly and may be interesting to the audience. It is a tenant engagement application for office buildings. So in the old days, if you were the owner or manager of an office property, you communicate with maybe the CEO of your company that rents your space, maybe the CFO of that company, maybe the office manager, and those were your points of contact. And maybe that company has thousands of employees and thousands of guests coming to the building. Well, that creates a real mismatch between what the building needs to engage with, what the tenants and guests want to engage with, and what can be done without technology. So we've invested in technologies that facilitate that tenant engagement and communication, allowing for, in some cases, access control, entering and exiting the building, certainly for health and safety communication, particularly in a COVID environment. If part of a building needs to be shut down because of a COVID case, how do you get the word out to all of the tenants and guests? You used to have to post a sign on the wall. You would have to send an email to the office manager, who would then have to send an email to all the. Now with HQO, this has totally been facilitated, and that package, that platform upon which can be built food delivery and parking and everything else that an occupier, their tenants or their guests might need in an office experience, all of a sudden is brought to the 21st century. Very, very exciting. I think the final I will give you is really that taking the pen and paper and moving it into the digital environment. We have several companies that we've invested in over the years that are taking primarily very manual processes and making them digital in a way that allows existing business to be done just much more effectively. I think that's a third model or trend that we've been very actively investing in.
Well, very, very interesting. Sometimes we can see that there's not only one technology, are many technologies working together to the final result. Yeah. It's very interesting. Well, let's talk a bit about startups. You know the startups very well, if that's your work. But what do you think is the sense, the main thing that nurtures the founders of the startups?
Yeah. So if I'm understanding, what are the key elements to make it successful?
Yeah.
Exactly. So. Yeah. Listen, we invest in early stage businesses, and in early stage businesses, Andrea, as you probably know, what the plan of growth and success is and what actually ends up happening over the years can be different. Mm-hmm. So how do you make decisions to invest millions of US dollars into companies that don't even know what their success will be? They have a plan, but life happens and they have to evolve. So the number one rule of investing in early stage startups like we do is to invest in team first. This is all about the people, and we have to understand the team's background. For example, do they come from the property industry with a lot of depth of knowledge in this space? Do they just get it? Do they come from a technology background? Have they identified a problem that they don't really understand, but realize that technology can solve this, and they try to create it. Many times we will see one or the other, especially in the early years. And as investors, our job was to take these two sides of the team, the individuals, and find a way to bring them together to create a company that can grow. Now it's very interesting. We have found, because people have worked at large prop tech companies like CoStar or VTS or Zillow or Opendoor or WeWork, and they leave, but they already know property and they already know technology together. They're already a prop tech entrepreneur. So it's very interesting to see how the people have evolved. Our job is to make sure that these people have the necessary domain knowledge for the problem that they're solving. We have to make sure that they have a track record of success. Now, they don't necessarily have to have built a prop tech company and sold it for $1 billion previously, but they do have to be winners as individuals. We also have to make sure that they have, quite importantly, Andrea, the resiliency, the tenacity to be able to fight through a very hard process of entrepreneurship, of building something that is much more likely to fail than to succeed, and not only bring it to success, but bring it to enormous success that can drive venture capital returns for our funds. So it's really about the individuals and looking for people who can build something special using pattern recognition and learning every day as the market evolves.
Right. Do you know that PropTech is very young in Latin America? Maybe 3 years ago, we were the first one to talk about PropTech with our events PropTech Latin Summit in 2018. So it's very young. The startups world here in Latin America is very young too. But what kind of recommendation could you make to these young startups here in Latin America? This is not easy, the way here in Latin America, you know that. But what kind of recommendation can you give that?
Well, for the startups, I think it's important to realize, and for everyone really, Andrea, that PropTech is new in LATAM, but it's also new everywhere. So have to not feel so difficult. It will continue to evolve, and the good news is that there is more interest every day in this space from around the world. Institutional capital coming into the space, private equity, IPOs, SPAC mergers, acquisitions from large industry players. So if you're a startup and you want to start a business, it's a very good time to be coming into PropTech. I would say 5 years ago, it would be very difficult to build a successful business that returns capital to your investors and to yourself. Now there's a really, really good chance. Also, I would say that the world has become distributed in a way that wasn't previously. Some venture capitalists used to say, I have to be able to see the entrepreneur, I have to fly to them or drive to them and meet them and touch them and feel them. I think the world has evolved beyond this. So if I'm a startup founder, the world of potential capital has really expanded over the last few months as we have gotten used to a remote work environment and doing business virtually over Zoom. And I think much of that will sustain. So these are all very positive trends for Latin American startups. You know, it's still very difficult for many international funds to invest in Latin American markets. Not because there's not a good opportunity, but because of currency risk, political risk, and legal eccentricities that make it difficult. So if I'm a startup and I want to access venture capital from the US, which is probably the safest bet, it makes sense to incorporate generally in the United States, to create a C Corp or Delaware, usually C Corp, as a legal entity, which will facilitate better investments. Now, how that works currency, how that works, with team headquarters. There's lots of questions. But if I'm a startup, I would say a very good time to start, and definitely consider domiciling the company in Delaware in order to get more access to international capital.
Well, congratulations. And you have a global overview for your work, but how do you see the real estate market in Latin America? How do you see the future for next year in Latin America?
I think as I've learned, and I'm learning more every day, that each market may be different in Latin America. Some of them very interesting from a technology perspective. For example, lately I've been talking to folks about Chile, about Peru, about Mexico, Brazil regularly, and I know historically, not recently, but Argentina and some of the other markets. Mm-hmm. So I've noticed that each market may be different in its development and embracing of technology and creation of innovation. Also may be different in its economic cycle, and maybe different in its concentration of real estate and real estate businesses and real estate centric corporations. So it's hard for me to give a blanket in LATAM what will happen. I will say that I have seen a move, including some of our companies, to do more software development in Latin America, which is very good. The more engineers, software engineers, and great software engineers that are coming out of the universities across Latin America will create new opportunities for innovation and entrepreneurship, and therefore investment. I think that's one important topic to really reinforce, is to really support the top universities who are graduating great technologists, because I think that can be the seed that you plant in future years to be able to harvest the fruit, if you will. I also think that industry, and particularly the families, because it seems to me that the real estate families in Latin America have a lot of control and a lot of exposure. I think it's important to encourage the real estate families to pilot or to test what is available in their home markets and abroad, to try and bring some of the best ideas. You know, for example, North America is a bit ahead of Europe or Asia or Latin America. Try to bring some of those technologies in, maybe make a small investment in local technologies or international technologies like some of the international peers have, or invest in funds, you know, ours or others that are specialists. I think those are things that the families certainly can do, and some of them have, and more of them will, to continue to spur the innovation to bring the space forward.
There are many few corporate ventures here, you know, companies that are investing in themselves in technology or startups, but it's a very, there are very many few. Yeah, but well, this is I think that it's the way, it's an evolution of the market. It's, as I told you before, it's very young PropTech here. People are here in Latin America. We are understanding what is happening and what is all this thing of the PropTech and the necessities of the market. So, well, it's an evolution. I think of evolution, I think. But I have a final question for you. This is the first time that you participate in an event in Latin America, as we said. You are very focused on the US market, maybe in the rest of the world. But why, after 5 years, you decide to look a bit into this region? Well,
personally, I have an affinity for Spanish-speaking countries. So, with apologies to Brazil, I studied Spanish, as you know, and I lived in Spain for some months during the Olympics in '92. So it's always been an area that has interested me. In recent years, I have visited Ecuador and Colombia, in the last couple of years, including with my son, to Galapagos. So I have become personally very interested in the culture, in the people, and learning more about the businesses. That's the personal side. So there's already an orientation and interest in things Latin America. And in Mexico, I've been many times with family and with friends. The business side is we're really seeing an internationalization of PropTech, Andrea, for the first time, really, in the last 2 years or so, I would say, where there is enough critical mass of interest, not just from industry, which has been there. The real estate players have been interested in innovation across the world for quite a long time now, maybe 5, 6, 7 years. But really, there being a critical mass of innovation starting to happen. Much of it is, I would call, replica or copycat type of innovation. So, there's an iBuyer model in the US. Why don't we do an iBuyer model in Brazil, for example, which makes a lot of sense. That's brilliant, right? I encourage that. But also, many of it is homegrown technology. And many of it, in some cases, we have a company called We Smart Park from Barcelona that has moved into Latin America to grow their parking technology business. So you have actual international prop tech startups coming in to build the market. And those are very good signs. Those are very good signs of the future. And we are very encouraged to think that maybe this is an area where we not only would like to personally, but from a business perspective, should be spending more time building relationships with the great event producers and organizers like you and your team, wonderful people. I really appreciate you having us here to speak, but also with the individual stakeholders, the institutions, the real estate players, the real estate families, and of course, the startups. So we are going to be spending more and more time in Latin America as our business develops and as the ecosystem continues to grow. And right now it is growing very fast.
Yes, totally. Very, very fast. We can see that in every event that we made. We have made in the last event, online event last year, 15 countries participating of the event.
Wow.
At the event, I'm sorry. So yes, wow. It's really growing fast and globally.
Terrific.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, thank you very much for your time. It was my honor to receive you here at PropTech Latam. I hope that it is the first time, but not the last one.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to share our story and some of the trends. And we are here as a friend and as a resource to you and to your audience and entire community anytime. Please look us up if we can be helpful and come visit us when you come to New York City.
Yes, I hope so. Right. Thank you very much for your time. Bye.